Last July, I testified before this committee that 15 cases of wage theft were not adequately investigated. Today's testimony highlights the results of our investigation into whether those 15 cases were isolated or the tip of the iceberg. My testimony has two parts. First, I will discuss the results of our investigation, and second, I will discuss our recommendations and conclusions. First, our covert testing clearly shows that the complaint intake process is fundamentally flawed. Posing as fictitious wage theft victims, we filed 10 common complaints with labor offices across the country. We also posed as a fictitious employer that had committed the labor law violations. Examples of our findings include no response to a message we left that children were working during school hours and operating circular saws and meat grinders. One fictitious employee being told not to file a complaint unless he had another job lined up. Investigators accepting employer refusals to pay without question, and cases recorded in the system as paid even after our bogus employee told the department that they were not. We also found that most calls we made during business hours went directly into voicemail and oftentimes were never returned. At the end of my presentation, I will play several clips from the undercover calls we made to labor offices across the country. We also investigated cases involving over 1,000 actual wage theft victims. These cases were identified through data mining, and thus they cannot be projected to all investigations. However, they clearly show that many investigations are not adequate. For example, one employer agreed that it owed 93 employees $200,000. However, this employer stalled until the 2-year statute of limitations had expired. This case was closed with no collections. In another case, an investigator found that 438 employees were owed $230,000. This case was not assigned for 22 months and once again ultimately was closed with no collections. One allegation was from an employee that worked at a sheriff's office. The investigator closed this case after 2 phone calls were not returned. We also found that conciliation cases are oftentimes not recorded in the Department of Labor's systems. Conciliations generally reflect complaints of one or several employees. We found that the head of the Southeast region, which has about 57% of these types of complaints, instructed offices in that region not to record failed attempts at conciliation. Thus, it is not surprising that our statistical sample showed that 95% of recorded conciliations were adequately investigated. This is a good news, bad news story. The good news is that when adequate investigations are performed, there are often positive results. The bad news is that likely thousands of these failed conciliation cases are never recorded in the system. Non-conciliation cases generally involve a larger number of employees. Our statistical sampling of these cases showed that 81% of the time they were adequately investigated. For example, in one case it was completed in 4 months with $59,000 collected for 12 convenience store employees. This case involved detailed payroll analysis and complete follow-up to ensure that all of the employees were in fact paid. The flip side to this is that 19% of the larger cases are not adequately investigated. This leaves thousands of victims vulnerable to wage theft with no help from the federal government. Moving on to my second point, based on our overall work, we have concluded that the complaint intake and investigation processes are not effective. We plan to issue a report with several recommendations to labor to improve their human capital, processes, and the use of technology. For example, we were surprised to find that investigators had no special technology or tools to do their work. If labor's mission in this area is to properly investigate wage theft allegations, then they need specialized tools to research and identify individuals and businesses. My unit would be far less effective in serving the Congress without the critical research tools that we use every day. In addition, throughout our work, we found many symptoms of human capital problems. We will be recommending for labor to take a look at matters such as hiring, training, and whether sufficient staff are on board to achieve the mission. In conclusion, our work shows that the 15 cases I described for you last year were in fact the tip of the iceberg. I am concerned that thousands of victims of wage theft become frustrated with the complaint intake process and never actually file complaints with labor. Thousands of others who file complaints find themselves victims of unscrupulous employers who know how to beat the system. I'm also concerned that with the current economic crisis that wage theft is increasing. Congress and the new administration have an opportunity to make changes that would better protect our nation's most vulnerable workers. Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned, I would like to now play some clips from the undercover calls we made that will give you and the members of this committee an inside look at what real victims of wage theft can face when dealing with the federal government.
Okay, well, you will have to pay him what at least the minimum wage for all the hours that he works.
Well, like I said, all of our contracts have dried up. We really don't have anything coming in, so.
Okay. Yeah, so you're just not in a position where you can pay him?
No.
Okay, well then I will let him know that he has his private right to action to pursue the funds.
Once the employer tells me that they're not going to pay and that they can't, my ability to, force payment has ended.
So you really have no power to do anything? All you did was just call and ask her to pay me. And she just...
And, well, the thing is that I explained the law to her. She knows that she needs to pay you. It's just that she's saying she doesn't have the money to. I can't bring blood from a stone. I am bound by the laws that I'm able to enforce, the money that Congress gives us, and all of that lovely stuff. If you are having a problem with what our office is capable of achieving based on the laws that were written, then you need to let your congressmen. Okay, do you know who your congressmen are? I mean, we can use all the help we can get.
You sure you don't want to just have a nice conversation with him yourself?
No, I don't want to, because he gets very loud and angry.
Okay, well, here's another avenue that you can pursue. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have another job lined up?
No.
Okay, you might want to do that before you file a complaint with us. Because I can't guarantee that he's not going to fire you.
Yeah, they have to have a certain ADV amount for us to have enterprise coverage, and they don't have it.
What's that mean? I don't understand.
What the gross sales is for the year.
How do you get that?
We report off of the IRS statements.
Oh, so you check with IRS, and IRS says that he reports less than that.
Yeah.
We have a backlog right now of about 8 months.
Oh,
8 to
okay.
10 months.
Okay.
So we're not even going to be starting investigation in 8 to 10 months.
Please leave a message, and the officer of the day will return your call as soon as possible.
I've seen a place, I think it's called CP&D meat packaging or something like that in Modesto, California. I've seen kids working there. I believe they're underage. They seem to be working all day, probably during school, and working on some heavy type of equipment like I guess you call them circular saws, and the ones that the machine that makes like hamburger meat.
Mr. Chairman, that ends our statement. Mr. Meyer and I look forward to your questions.